7.
Hello, my name is Robert Crumb, and this is my wife, Aileen. We're underground cartoonists.
On the surface, our life appears to be really quaint and charming.
Yes, doesn't it? But underneath, it's a steaming cauldron of sexual perversion, drugs, and twisted neurosis.
Robert Crumb kreeg halverwege de jaren 60 bekendheid als pionier van de zogenaamde underground strip. Tot dan toe werd de Amerikaanse stripwereld beheerst door Walt Disney en het geruststellende gedachtegoed van Superman. Waarheid, gerechtigheid en de Amerikaanse levensstijl. De wereld van Crumb echter wemelt van de antihelden, paranoia en angstbeelden. Zijn demonen komen niet uit andere melkwegstelsels, maar uit het moderne Amerika en Crumbs eigen onderbewuste. Zijn bekendste creaties hebben in de striphistorie een plaats gekregen naast Mickey Mouse en Popeye. Bijvoorbeeld de onstuimige, zelfzuchtige Frits de Cat en Mr. Natural, het prototype van de goeroe die altijd klaarstaat met wijze woorden voor de zoekende mens. Hun escapades zijn een bijtende satire op de aspiraties van de hippie-generatie. Maar Crumbs meest onsterfelijke personage is hij zelf. Hij maakt van het stripverhaal een belijdenis van zijn strubbelingen met vrouwen, het leven en zichzelf. En geeft daarbij gevoelens en fantasieën bloot die de meeste mannen liever geheim zouden houden.
Maybe there's something wrong with me. Sometimes I really think that I have some sort of deep genetic defect or something, some kind of mutation. I didn't turn out normal. That's why I have all this resentment and contempt and everything like that. But self-hatred is a strong motivating force in my work, not to mention my sex drive.
Robert, stop whining already. It's repulsive. You got it good.
You're right. See, I'm attracted to the big, strong women, this physically superior types. Powerful, all-American brat girl. The modern American woman is quite amazing. Some of them are in top physical condition. Take Aileen here, for instance. She goes to these dance classes and aerobic exercise things, and her body is unbelievable. Things it can do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Torso, up and down, back. Right. Bring arms up. Up. Let's push it out, 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 out. 1, 2, 3. Stretch the chest out. Bring the arms all the way back. Stretch it. Now just one arm. 1, 2, 3, 4, and left. 1, 2, 3, 4, and right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make it tinier. 1, just the shoulder. 2, 3, 4. Shoulder right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shoulder left. 4. Together. 1, 2, 3, 4.
My God, look what they're doing in there.
4.
These are just ordinary housewives and college co-eds. The teacher's a microbiologist or something.
Full speed.
We really are entering the age of the Amazons.
1,
Personally, I'm glad to see it.
4.
I like these women with a lot of physical self-confidence.
When you come back, it's with the hips back.
Ay, 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 ay.
The hips are hot.
Sheesh.
Fan them up. Snap it. Back, 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 back. Tuck. Tuck. back, now forward, 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 forward.
Yeah, I suppose I am a sexist. I've tried to raise my consciousness, God knows. I have this recurring vision that I'm standing before this tribunal of feminist women, and they're demanding that I answer for my exploitation of women in my cartoons. And the only answer I have is that I'm telling the truth about myself, for better or worse. Take it or leave it. But the bitter irony for me is that in spite of all the feminist consciousness raising and all that that's gone on, most women still are drawn to the powerful, dominant alpha male type, and that's not the kind of guy I am at all. And I'm still just basically a shy wimp. So people wonder why I'm bitter. My father was an archetypical, tough American kind of guy. He was a career in the Marines. I remember that my father was very bewildered by the fact that all three of his sons were wimps and sissies. All three of us used to get beat up in school. I remember getting beat up by a girl when I was in the 3rd grade. She broke my glasses. I went home crying. All three of us, me and my 2 brothers, were rejected by the Army as inferior specimens for one reason or another. My poor father, he finally just gave up on us. We were hopeless. I think it kind of broke his heart. He had these 3 useless sons.
Time can erase the memory of these magic moments filled with love. The telephone called the tide of the lines for hours and hours.
My parents sent us to Catholic school. My father was an atheist, but he liked the discipline that the Catholic school inflicted on the children. He thought that was good for you, the way the nuns were. I tried very hard, actually, to be a good boy, and it was always very rewarding to get a pat on the head from those nuns. I had a heavy Catholic guilt.
And it seems as if we have really hit bottom. And then there comes a new blow. And we go down to a lower level. It seems as if we're always striking new potencies for enduring suffering. But pleasure can reach a point where sometimes it turns into pain. For example, tickling. Tickling is funny at first, but if it keeps up too long, it can actually produce tears.
My mother watched Perry Como and Bishop Sheen on TV. Me and my brother, older brother Charles, kind of lost ourselves in comics, and then we started drawing our own comics. Sometimes we would play out little dramas with our teddy bears. I still had my teddy bear when I was 12. My father finally had to throw it away.
To make man, and from that moment on, dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return.
Up till I was about 15 years old, I was a very repressed, prudish type of little boy. And then when puberty hit me, I was shocked. Suddenly, my sexual libido awoke with a demonic intensity. I didn't know what to make of it. I couldn't deal with it at all. I became obsessed with girls. Or my first great lust, I remember in the summer of 1956, was Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. She was this striking blonde Amazon on this jungle TV show. I used to anxiously await going to bed at night so that I could have fantasies about Sheena. I guess actually I haven't changed all that much, really. I still have basically the same attitudes that I had then about women. They're just a little more worked out, a little more elaborate. Now I want to share with you my appreciation for what I consider the ideal female figure. Would you step over here, please? Remove your coat. Thank you. Now, first, let me just say, hair and skin color are completely irrelevant. She could be any race, this ideal woman of mine. Now, breasts are not a big point with me. Big ones are nice, but I can take them or leave them. Now here, this is a very important feature, this forward pelvic tilt. I call it the bean effect. If you look at an ordinary kidney bean, you'll see that it resembles the bean effect. The head's up here. The legs are in back of the upper torso, just like this woman's fine form. Absolutely marvelous. And here's another genetically wondrous trait, this very round and muscular rear end. This is something I find absolutely irresistible. You see how the protrusion of this bottom creates a kind of shelf back here. Marvelous. In 8th grade, all I did was stare at girls' legs all day. They wore tight skirts and bobby socks or saddle shoes in those days. Of course, I was a painfully shy, out-of-it nerd. There was no possibility of ever actually talking to any of the girls I was secretly in love with. Jeanette Betts, Dolly Hensley, Bridget Costarelli, Joanne Plunk. Where are they now? All through my teen years, I also got heavily into collecting stuff. I became more and more steeped in America's past. I lived in this fantasy world about the 1920s and the 1890s and all that, and got really romantic about it all. I don't know, modern America seemed bankrupt in some way, getting more and more so. I still kind of feel that way, actually. I got more and more into old music also. I had this attraction to old music, seemed more raw and vital than modern music. I couldn't quite understand why. I'm sure it had something to do with the fact that I was a social outcast.
There's one pet I like to pet, and every evening we get set. I stroke it every chance I get. It's my girl's pussy. Seldom plays and never purrs, and I like the thought it stirs, but I don't mind because it's hers. My girl's pussy.
It's Harry Roy and his Bat Club Boys. It's a great English record.
It's a pretty melody and a charming sentiment, too.
And well played. I wonder how well that party record we did sold.
There's one pet I like to pet, and every evening we get set. I stroke it every chance I get. It's my girl's pussy.
Getting worked up now.
Never plays, never burns, and I love thought it stirs, but I don't mind because it's hers. It's my girl's pussy. So often he goes out at night, and he does it.
These English guys were pretty hip, you know, jazz and all that stuff.
It's always trouble. I bring tidbits that
Amazing how much good jazz there was recorded in England then.
I take care to remove my gloves when soaking my girl's pussy.
Yeah, they're not as, guess they're not as stodgy as I thought over there. I marvel at the works of the artists of the past that I admire. Guys like Peter Bruegel or George Cruikshank, or James Gilray, who I'm looking at right now. It's staggering the amount of work they were able to get done and still capture so well the spirit of their own time. Look at the whip marks on her back there. Those ladies in the pillory. I could study these things my whole life. I did a comic story based on the diaries of James Boswell written in the 1760s, and I used Gilray's work and some of Hogarth's also for source material for the way things looked in 18th century England. I found myself getting sucked into trying to compete with this guy, and the amount of detail and character that he captured. It was really a hopeless endeavor, but I thought Boswell's diary was very interesting because of the way he would confess to all these secret sins, picking up whores in the park, and then he would be very remorseful and try and behave like the refined, cultured gentleman that he imagined himself the rest of the time. I thought that was a very interesting personal conflict there. When I was 19, a pen pal of mine invited me to come and share an apartment with him in Cleveland. When I quickly got a job at a local greeting card company. All through this whole period, I was still basically a lonely and maladjusted weirdo. I would do secret drawings of my sex fantasies, and then when I was finished, I would tear them up and flush them down the toilet. And then all of a sudden, I met a fat, alienated, lonely girl, and the next thing I knew, I was married. She was as desperate as I was. The only thing we had in common was our desperation. She was 18 and I was 21, and everybody thought it was wonderful, and so we got married. We immediately settled into a dismal married routine. I would get up and go to work, and after work I'd go out with the guys from the greeting card company and start to get drunk, and them and the wives would call up the bar on the phone and demand that the husbands come home.
You are love.
Hello, I'm Rex Humbard, and today the entire Humbard family are singing
Smoke 'em, then you'll see. Ellis, MFT.
I started getting involved around this time in the budding hippie subculture in Cleveland. Then in 1965, I took LSD for the first time, which completely knocked me for a loop. Things were never the same. The whole thing just seemed like a shabby, cardboard, flat reality compared to the levels of meaning that I saw under the influence of that drug.
They are Mrs. Kenneth Strayer, Mrs. Donald Naggs, and Mrs. Arthur Kramer. Now, ladies, would you each check the inside of your washer to make sure it's completely clean?
I couldn't talk to people at work. I was speechless. They'd look at me and say, "Crumb, what's with you? What's happened to you?" And there's no way I could explain it.
Dress at the top of the elbow.
The whole world that I was living in just seemed like a puppet show, a tragic farce. And I couldn't figure out why anybody would want to live that way.
The door opens completely automatically.
Hee-yaw! Hee-yaw! Hee-yaw!
I broke up with my wife again in the middle of an LSD trip. The next day she put sleeping pills in the chicken soup to try and keep me from leaving.
And furthermore, a pearl is made from a wound and a sorrow and an oyster. A richer banquet than this.
In 1966, my head was just spinning with strange visions and this kind of electric, animated craziness. It's hard to describe.
Sweeps bugs from the air.
But I managed to get some of it down on paper. I did drawings of all these archetypal cartoon figures that kind of floating around in the collective subconscious. These images would just come up in my mind when I was sitting on a bus or staring out a window. It just all starts spinning out of the middle of my brain. I met a couple of friends of mine in a bar one night after work in Cleveland, and they said they were going out to San Francisco, so I just went with them. Once I was out there, I was overcome with guilt. I got in touch with my wife, and she came out, and we lived in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco for a couple of years. Thousands of young kids coming from all over the country to the mecca of hippiedom, taking LSD and dancing around the streets. It was quite a zoo, really. Myself, I never really became a full-fledged hippie. I mean, I said far out and groovy and oh wow and all that, I confess. But somehow I was too uptight or too modest to ever really let it all hang out, as they used to say. I couldn't dance in my bare feet in the park and play a bamboo flute and all that. Or Janis Joplin used to say, "Come on, Crumb, you really want to be popular with the girls and all that? Just to let your hair grow long and get yourself one of those big flowing shirts and all that. Come on." I said, "I can't do that." Still, though, I was definitely caught up in the general optimism of that period, and I believed, like a lot of other people, that all you need is love, and that the world was going to blossom out and smell like roses forevermore and all that. And that's where I came up with all these characters. Like White Man, it's basically represented the kind of guy that my father was, this sort of rigid person who's basically caught up in all these illusions about what you're supposed to do with your life as a member of society. I had this character called the Old Pooperoo that just represented this kind of workaday aspect of reality where you just have to get down and shovel shit all the time just to stay alive. And then, of course, Angel Food Mix Spade and the Vulture Demonesses and all those larger-than-life female characters. I had this character, Mr. Natural, and Mr. Natural became sort of a cockeyed guru character. And then Flaky Foont, who represented this kind of like hung-up aspect of myself, you know, that's always worried about everything and doesn't understand that everything is cosmic, you know.
It was around this time I started meeting a lot of other underground cartoonists. I met Spain Rodriguez. And Spain was kind of a hardline communist advocate, and I actually learned a lot from that guy about politics as well as drawing. It was also around this time that S. Clay Wilson moved to San Francisco, and the thing I learned from him was the absolute freedom to draw whatever comes into your mind. So for several years after that, I spent a lot of my creative energy just getting out all this craziness out of my subconscious. It was very therapeutic. A lot of those guys got together and formed a kind of cartoonist collective. When we put these Zap comics together, we would edit it cooperatively. There was 6 or 7 artists involved in each issue. And then when all the separate pieces were done, we'd get together and have a big party and do these kind of jam sessions where we do a page or two, everybody kind of doing little parts of each panel, which turned out pretty chaotic sometimes, but in the midst of all the confusion and turmoil, I suddenly found that there was all these girls around who seemed to find me very interesting. It was definitely a feast set before a starving man.
When I first met Robert in San Francisco, I was an art student at the time, and Spain took me to a party where I met Robert, and I was really a great fan of his. I was real nervous, and I said, gee, I really admire your work. And he said, yeah, you have really cute knees. And I thought, God, this guy's really weird. At the time, he had a girlfriend and a wife, which I didn't know, but we proceeded to get involved, and my life was totally crazy for the next few years. We lived on a commune together with the wife and other people, and we remained there until his wife chased us off with a shotgun several years later.
And the music, of course, was a very important part of the hippie scene. That whole part of it left me totally cold. I could not get with that music at all. It did nothing for me. I'd go off in a corner and go to sleep at those things, or just wander out in the street feeling kind of lost and confused about it all. I got involved with a bunch of friends of mine who were into old-time music, and we kind of formed a band and started playing music around different places. My friend Robert Armstrong, who's also a cartoonist in his own right, we formed this band called the Cheap Suit Serenaders. But the music business, I found out very quickly, was even more horrible than the comic business. As a business, dealing with all of that stuff was playing in bars and performing in front of crowds was really nerve-wracking. I never really enjoyed having to get up in front of an audience, and I wasn't really cut out to be a performer, so eventually I had to quit doing that. But suddenly, when I was 25, after spending most of my life generally being ignored by most people in the world and being sort of a non-entity, suddenly all these people wanted to talk to me. They just thought I was like this interesting person, you know. I was hot, I was the man of the hour, and I think what it did to the content of my work is it kind of made me more cynical, and the comics got weirder and kind of nastier. I started putting more and more of the darker side of myself in my comics just to say, okay, you know, they love me so much, let's see if they can handle this. That's when I did those big-ass comics and the snatch comics, all that offensive, grotesque sex stuff.
course, a natural outgrowth of the fame was that the big-time hustlers moved in. Suddenly, I seemed to have lawyers talking for me and guys arguing about percentages and contracts, and I mean, it was all made me rather dizzy, but you know, I thought, gee, I must be really cool. They think I'm such a hot property. That was my trouble. I ate it up. I believed them. They were all my friends. They were going to help me. They loved me. How did I know they were going to eat me up and spit me out?
A new world of experience awaits us, my loves. This bathtub is now transformed into a space capsule of truth and love.
This is wild. Yes, yes. Only in naked closeness like this can we all come to know each other.
Yes, right. Very good, Winston, darling.
That's how the Fritz the Cat movie happened. It was one of these high-powered deals. Fritz was this character that I'd drawn a lot of comics about since I was a kid. We had this pet cat named Fritz, and I used to draw comics about him to entertain my little brother and sister. And the first comic strip I ever had published, actually, was a Fritz the Cat strip that I'd done in 1964. When I was still working at the greeting card company, I sent a two-page strip to Help magazine, and I got this letter in the mail. It says, "Dear R. Crumb, we think the little pussycat drawings you sent us were just great. Question is, how do we print them without going to jail?" Character gradually evolved into this kind of like rambunctious college student type, and then there was a book published. So these New York, basically TV cartoon media guys saw it and thought it would be a good animated feature.
Fulfillment is important, don't you think so?
Oh, yes, very important.
Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah. Now I'm getting to the truth, I think, yes.
Oh, yes.
So it's getting all very clear now.
Oh.
Okay, Winston. Here come the truth.
Wow. Oh, shit. Maybe we better go, huh?
No, not at all. No, look here. You get down over here, and you down. That's right, down like that. That's right, right under here. Oh, watch the foot. No, right, that's right under here. Okay. Ready, everyone? Here we go.
I never liked the finished product. The Fritz the Cat movie, I thought it was, I don't know, the values or the vision that it had was, I don't know, somewhat depressing to me. So then I did a comic strip in which I had Fritz the Cat get killed by an irate female ostrich who stabs him in the head with an ice pick. So then they went ahead and did a movie called The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat. You can't win. If you do exceptionally good work, you'll be hounded to death. The media, people with ideas and schemes, they'll kill you, destroy your concentration forever. They won't let you breathe. You're either on or you're off. You're in the limelight blinded by the glare, or you're in the gutter being stepped on.
Let me remind you again about the programming opportunities. Robert Crumb, as you well know, is one of our outstanding guests this year. Robert will be appearing 4 times today. At this moment, he's in the Preston Trail Room.
Every subculture has its conventions and meetings, and comics is no exception. For the last couple of years, I've started letting myself be sucked into going to these things. They buy you a free plane ticket, put you up at the hotel. And
Morning, sir. How are you today?
Fine.
Chicory's right there is our combination restaurant, lounge, and club. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. They have their happy hour. Here we go. These are our elevators going up to the rooms. And around the corner from Chicory's, we also have our specialty restaurant, which is Mesquite's. And that they serve steak and seafood cooked over a mesquite wood grill. Around this corner back over here, we have our indoor-outdoor pool. We also have a jacuzzi and a sauna and a fully equipped exercise room for you. Here we are. I'll just set your case down here for you. Could I fill up your ice bucket for you? No. Okay. On television here, automatically comes on to 22. Gives you a preview of these movies up here. And they're $5.75 each, billed directly to your room. And here we also have 3 complimentary cable channels. We have HBO for movies, CNN for news, ESPN for sports. They're all listed in here, along with 6 local channels, and they can be located on this other side of the Spectre Vision Guide. And this here operates those pay movies. Okay? Is there anything else we can do for you? Okay. Most of the light switches are on the bottoms of the lamps here. And if there is anything, just give us a call downstairs. Okay? You're welcome. Enjoy your stay with us.
Basically, you just stay in the hotel the whole time for 3 days. You don't leave the hotel. And I always feel like I'm in a space station 100,000 miles from the surface of the Earth.
All right, Robert Crumb does not like the direction that the modern world has taken. So let's begin by finding out what you think are the worst characteristics of modern America. And what is the basis for your dislike of modernism? Is it political, economic, moral, all 3?
All of the above. That's a big broad question there.
Yes, it is.
And does anybody care? That's
They have these panel discussions about different aspects of comics, and they're always held in these big hotels. It's all modern and real alienating.
Well, can you delineate specifically what you don't like about the modern world?
It's really a hard thing to achieve nowadays, where you can feel that you have some kind of harmony and control of your surroundings, you know, that you can sit in your house and look with pride on something that over there that you made, a piece of furniture or even a piece of clothing, then it's, you know, certain aesthetic values that you are part of, you identify with, and they are a statement of something about yourself. That's really a hard to find item in this setup.
I did this cartoon in the late 60s, which really became hugely popular, caught the public imagination somehow. And suddenly all this Keep on Truckin' merchandise began to appear everywhere. Keep on Truckin' bath towels, Keep on Truckin' mud flaps, Keep on Truckin' light bulbs. It was really big. My lawyer is screaming and hollering, we'll appeal it, we'll get these guys. Robert, there's $100,000 in this, you can't let it go now. I said, forget it, I'm tired of it, I'm through, finished. I don't want to hear about it anymore. But somehow I kept working, I kept turning out comics, I did all these titles. They were selling quite well, there was a lot of money flowing in. And it all flowed right out again, too. My wife and various girlfriends and I squandered money all over the place. My life was a complete shambles. Also, the whole hip subculture that had kind of given me the support, and my fame and all that was kind of disintegrating. I felt very lost and confused, and the whole psychedelic basis of a lot of my work kind of lost the magic. And I became relegated to just being just another guy from the 60s. Finally, it began to close in, and of course I had a kind of a nervous breakdown. It's a classic story, you've heard it all before. My work finally ground to a halt around 1973. I just could no longer cope with anything. I was heavily involved with Aileen by that time. Initially, I'd been attracted to her because she was like this wild girl in hot pants. But kind of gradually, I got to know her better. Of all the women that I was involved with, she seemed to be the most sensible. She isn't saying much because I was involved with all these really psychotic women. This other crazy girlfriend of mine came up to the commune to stay with me, and she brought her suitcase, and somehow she had the idea that she was going to move in with me. I don't know, maybe I said something I said, I don't know. So Aileen just flipped out. She was stormed out of my cabin and fell off her platform shoes and broke her foot, so she couldn't move around much, so we started drawing this comic together just to keep her amused.
When he and his brother were kids, they used to do that to amuse each other, so he decided to do it with me. Robert drew his lines and I drew myself, and although there's a history of family or domestic strips, no one has ever done it where each person actually writes their own part.
Magic moments when two hearts are caring. Magic moments, memories we've been sharing. I'll never forget the moment we kissed the night of the hayride. The way that we hugged to try to keep warm while taking a sleigh ride. Magic moments, memories we've been sharing. Magic moments when two hearts are caring. Time can't erase the memory of these magic moments filled with love. The telephone call, the tide of the lines for hours and hours.
In a way, it's really therapeutic, and also visually real interesting to see your work with somebody else's right in the same panel.
I end up doing most of the shading, all this background detail. There's no percentage in all this detail. You just gotta do it for the love of it. I enjoy doing all these little cross-hatching lines. My hopeless love for the Thomas Nast look. I once got a letter from a guy who said he loved my cross-hatching more than he loved getting stoned. Just things like that that make it all worth it.
It's mostly domestic, but it also gets into fantasies and sexual relationship and fights and everything, and it really parodies real life exactly because you're working and just putting it down as it's happening.
Singing in the bathtub, happy once again, watching all my troubles go dripping down the drain. You're such a big exhibitionist.
Did I get all the hairs off?
Never take a shower.
Uh-oh, I have a bruise on my lip.
It's an awful pain.
I'm upset.
How'd you get a bruise?
I don't know, dance class or something, or maybe I fell.
Poor baby.
I'm deeply upset and disturbed.
You didn't get it from me hitting you?
I don't know, it's possible. You're such a brute. And especially from a woman's point of view, to actually be able to give yourself your own lines. It always has been a man speaking for both parts. But in this case, I answer back, you know?
Oh, you don't say. Oh. But anyway, Aileen and I got pretty solid together and moved away from the commune and moved over here to the valley, which is a much more kind of a normal workaday place compared to Mendocino County, where there's nothing but crazy hippies all over the place. And I quit taking drugs completely, stopped taking LSD and smoking marijuana, and I suddenly felt my head clear. started to get more serious about drawing again and more interested in technical aspects of drawing. And I began to really enjoy being able to concentrate in this way that I'd forgotten how to do from being stoned all the time. What do you do with that?
Make the stems.
You gonna make stems? I don't see any stems.
See, Daddy, right there.
It's been real interesting having a child with Robert, since we're both artists and we both work at home. When she was first born, he didn't have a separate studio, so his desk was right in this room, and literally she was on his lap while he was drawing. And I was such a wreck from nursing her and having no sleep that I couldn't draw at all. Robert and I both felt we were being total martyrs, torn from our work, and, you know, we sort of resented each other, and it was real exhausting. But about a year after she was born, we built a separate studio, and he was able to go out there as though he had a real job. He'd leave and stay out there all day and actually get work done. And since he was really supporting our family, that was, like, essential.
Doing this kind of stuff requires really a lot of reference material. For this Philip K. Dick strip, I have these photos of the guy that I have to use. It really helps a lot. And also for this style of drawing, which I'm new at, and I'm using a brush to do the inking, I've been doing some research on these old artists from the early days of comic books. This is 1954. This guy, Jay Disbrow, he's not particularly well remembered or appreciated now, but I really love the mood that he creates with the heavy black ink. Some people think that this style isn't as distinctive as my pen and ink style, but so what? I'm into it. I have to make a lot of changes, though, as I go along. I never get it right the first time. It was so much easier in the old days when I just drew in that Popeye style. It took me a long time to come around to trying to draw realistically. I was always sort of somewhat intimidated by it. It takes me a lot longer to do a comic page now than it used to. I feel like I finally arrived at a point technically where I'm capable of capturing something realistic and pulling it off. I don't think I could have done that years ago, or I could actually do a documentary type comic book like that Jelly Roll Morton thing, where basically it's taken from these interviews with him that were recorded in, I guess, 1940 or somewhere around there. Hard work illustrating that, but it's only now, at this point in my life, that I feel that I can even technically handle a task like that. Yes, I suppose you could say my work has turned a couple of corners since those early days of Zap Comics. For me, I just want to be able to keep doing my own comics as long as I can. But sometimes I yearn for a life like Auguste Renoir, where you just take your easel out in the countryside and start in painting. Of course, on the other hand, they didn't have cars or phones or TVs or stuff like that. They didn't need answering machines. I think it's really hard to maintain this kind of concentration in the modern world.
How
can an artist maintain a lifetime of devotion to his craft in this situation? I'm not even sure it's possible. It's something I struggle with every day. It's just one damn thing after another. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake up filled with terror, cold sweat. Sometimes my mind, while I'm laying there in bed, will spin out these worst-case scenarios. It's not just things that go bump in the night, not just some homicidal maniac that might have escaped from the Vacaville Correctional Facility breaking in and killing us all in our beds. It's not even just the imminent possibility of nuclear holocausts. There's things going on here in America, steaming hatreds and paranoias out here in the heartland. Right-wing fundamentalist Christians on the rise right here in Winters. These kind of survivalist types building up arsenals. They're organizing. They're getting ready for the big showdown with enemies of decent Christian people, which I'm sure they would consider me if they knew what I did out here in my studio.
God, you're looking upon them. God, you're right there because God, you're everywhere throughout this whole...
I have this vision of them coming to get me, of course. But I've settled down, learned to accept my responsibilities, more or less. I'm the family guy now, the breadwinner, Mr. Taxpayer. I worry about paying the bills, I mow the lawn, I argue with the wife, take crap from my bratty kid. Yes, we have it good here.